The ancient Japanese warriors, known as the samurai, were among the most skilled swordsmen to ever walk the earth. Stoic and poised, the samurai were also known for their intense and unwavering pursuit of honor, bravery, and discipline. As the head of the Japanese cavalry, many of feudal Japan's enemies became well aware of the existence of the samurai after facing them in open battle. Conversely, the shinobi became more well known for their subterfuge and stealth. Often referred to as ninjas, the shinobi were masters of assassination and sabotage while still being well versed in open arms combat. But what exactly makes a samurai or shinobi stick out from any other kind of ancient warrior? What was it like to live a day in the life of a samurai or shinobi? And what might it have been like to live during the war-stricken time of feudal Japan? Well, my friends, pour yourself a drink and join us as we dissect these medieval badasses in today's Omoshiroi episode of Tipplers 2 Cents. Omoshiroi means interesting in Japanese, by the way. You're welcome. Konnichiwa, drinkers and thinkers, and welcome back to episode 22 of Tipplers 2 Cents. I'm your host and creator, Chris Walters, and joining me as always is your co-host and co-creator, Sean Knox.
Omae wa shinneu. Supposed to say nane?
Nani? Thank you all for joining us today. We have a very awesome selection of topics today, the samurai and shinobi. I am very, very excited to get started on today's topics. But before we do that, I wanted to take a minute to remind everybody that our new show, Cinematography, is live. That's right, episode 1 is out now, available for you to listen to on at least Spotify. Sean, what other platforms is it available on? Is it on all of them yet, or?
I've submitted it to Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Pandora, and iTunes. So they should be up on there pretty soon.
All right, so pretty soon we'll be on all those other ones, but for right now, you can at least listen on Spotify and our Tipplers 2 Cents Facebook page. But anyway, let's go ahead and let everybody know what's on the menu for you boys. Today I'm going to be breaking open what's left of my Hibiki Suntory Japanese whiskey. Still got, a good amount left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it felt appropriate for today's episode. I was going to try to get some sake, because that seemed like it would have been a good idea, but I ran out of time to order it.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks. Kind of bummed. I've never tried sake either. Have you tried it?
I think I tried it once, a long time ago, but I don't really remember how it tasted.
Yeah.
But I wanted to honor our Japanese friends by drinking Modelo. I didn't think about the episode at all whenever I bought this. I'd just been thinking about how much I like Modelo, so I'm going to be drinking this.
So apparently it's Modelo time.
Yeah, it's Modelo time, fool.
I'm not gonna go too crazy, but I poured a decent amount there.
Oh, and by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, we have video now, so you can always come and check out our ugly fucking faces. And Chris copying my haircut, this son of a bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't realize until after it was already done, so it's kind of too late now.
No, that's fine. But yeah, we have a video now, so if you actually want to see us and make sure that we're actually drinking, okay, then you can
I know
come.
There's a couple of people that think we aren't, so this is proof.
Yeah,
you saw me pour it.
We actually do drink it. But anyway, do you have...
It's time for the toast, which I didn't really have one quite prepared. I've kind of run out of things to toast about. I feel like all my good news has passed. I don't know if you've got anything you want to toast to.
I'm getting a raise. I mean, I'm getting a raise to, because whenever I got robbed, I got a raise when I got robbed, but apparently my boss's boss really likes me for not leaving after getting robbed. So, yeah, I was pretty much just like, hey, I'm gonna be losing a third of my household income pretty soon, and he was just like, I said that to my boss, and he had somehow heard about it. and he was like, "Oh no, he doesn't need to leave. Just pay him what he wants."
All right.
So,
well, I mean, yeah, we can cheers to that. So, yeah, I guess cheers to your raise, and cheers to us getting this show finally on YouTube after our second season.
yeah, video. We have it on YouTube. Just
or video, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, cheers.
Oh, it tastes so good.
Woo! Woo, woo! All right. With that, it's time we get started on our very first topic of the day, the samurai. The word samurai is derived from the Japanese word subaru, which means to serve. The samurai were a class of warriors which arose in the 8th century in Japan, known as the Heian period, and performed military service until the end of the 19th century. Elite and highly trained soldiers adept at using both bow and sword, the samurai were an essential component of Japan's medieval armies. Warfare in medieval Japan was as bloody and as uncompromising as it was in any other region, and money was often the prime motive for many samurai to participate in battle. From the 17th century, and no longer needed in a military capacity, samurai often became important moral teachers and advisors within the community. But to understand the samurai better, we need to know what it was like to become one, to follow their code, and to serve as they served. So let's go back to the roots, leading up to how one even becomes a samurai, and what it was like to live an ordinary day as one of these warriors. The rigorous training of a samurai began in childhood and would start as early as 4 a.m. every morning. The quality of education received as a child depended heavily on your social status. Sons of wealthy families were sent to special academies, where they were tutored in literature, the arts, and military skills. Lower-class children could still receive some basic formal training from local village schools, but mostly their education was in the ways of a samurai would come from their fathers, brothers, and uncles. Training in martial arts was considered very important and often began as early as age 3. That is fucking terrifying. Can you imagine, like, a 3-year-old that knows karate? Like, holy fuck.
Dude.
That's like Lily or Kira being able to just whip your ass.
That'd be fucking dope. Dude, I'd kick her across the fucking room. I don't give a shit.
Like, that'd be amazing, though. Like, if Kira could just come up to me and just fucking... Like, holy shit.
Wait. So how many toddlers do you think that you can handle that know karate? Because I can 100% handle one.
Yeah, one, no problem. I think maybe once it gets to around like 10, because each one of them takes about 1 hit. I think after about 10 hits, I'm going to get winded, so if they're at least able to survive 1 hit, they're probably going to beat me.
Well, yeah, because, like, think about the actual, I don't know, like, the actual discipline it takes to know that, so they can take pain really fucking well. So, like, maybe not 1 hit. So that's 3 hits per toddler. And imagine, so 3 hits per toddler times 10, so 30. You have to do 30 fucking hits per toddler. And that's... I don't know if I can even fucking do that many hits, bro. I get tired after 5.
All right. Anyway, the young warriors studied kendo, which is the way of the sword, the moral code of the samurai, and Zen Buddhism. Samurai were expected to live according to Bushido, which is the way of the warrior, a strict ethical code influenced by Confucianism that stressed loyalty to one's master, respect for one's superior, ethical behavior in all aspects of life, and complete self-discipline. Little tidbit of info here is girls also received martial arts training. Although most samurai women did not fight in the battlefield, they were prepared to defend their homes against invaders. So it's kind of funny because I didn't see a lot of stuff about female samurai, but I did find that little bit of information. So I did want to throw it in there for any ladies that are listening or like wondering if there have been any, female samurai. Apparently there were. They just weren't, they didn't stand out as much as males did. Yeah,
they didn't seem that well praised. I think that's what the issue was, because, it's very much I think it's still very much a masculine society. It's, definitely westernized, but as far as, praise for women of Japanese heritage, it doesn't really they seem to be more subservient, and they really want to make sure that some women stay in their place, which is an unfortunate, kind of thing. But as far as their culture goes, that does make sense.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll touch a little bit more on that kind of subject in a little bit too. Um, but anyway, continuing. In kind with martial arts training, the samurai were also trained in archery, horseback riding, and swimming, essential training for any would-be warrior. For sword training, the children were initially not given real swords, but instead wooden sticks shaped like swords. Many times, the children would be pit against one another in competition-style training sessions. The victor would ultimately gain favor with their respective teachers, while the loser would be challenged with overcoming their humiliation and defeat. This type of temperament training would also be important to becoming a true samurai. Eventually, though, the children would progress to using real swords during their training. And this is still when they're only around 5 years old. So we already talked about how crazy it would be if, a 3-year-old could come up to you and start doing some sort of martial arts. Now, just imagine a 5-year-old being able to wield a sword. It's like, now we're getting to different levels of shit here. Like, okay, I'm pretty confident in being able to take on about 10 3-year-olds that know martial arts. I don't know how many 5-year-olds I could take on with a katana. I don't know. I don't even want to do that math.
So our new shirt will be out next week.
Yeah, I'm like, that's totally going on a shirt. Anyway, at age 15, the samurai go through rites of adulthood and receive their own personal pair of swords known as daisho. A daisho consists of one long sword and one short sword. The long sword, known as a katana, is for training in combat, while the smaller blade, a wakizashi or tanto, is reserved for indoors close quarters combat, and more specifically, to perform seppuku, which is a ritual suicide by disembowelment. A samurai would be expected to perform seppuku if they were to dishonor themselves, their family, or their daimyo, feudal warlords who ruled over the various regions of Japan. Dishonor could be achieved by such simple things as defeat in combat, failure to defend your family's name from insult, and to pleasing one's daimyo. That would be like if every time somebody called your mom or sister a bitch and you didn't say something back, you just had to fucking kill yourself. Like every your mama so fat joke you never had a clap back to, you just had to fucking kill yourself like right then and there. I think it's safe to say the samurai were just, a little dramatic.
Holy fuck, dude. Can you imagine? Like having... Okay, imagine Americans being as harsh as they are already to each other, but imagine like having that hit to your ego, like actually... Because, dude, people have said so much shit just about me, and like, okay, and what are the rules on talking shit about yourself? Because I'm very like shit, like I'm very untouchable just because I talk shit about myself. So that means like the second I'm like, man, I look pretty ugly without teeth, I just have to fucking be like,
yeah, that's what I mean. I'm like, that's so intense. Like, just. Somebody just comes up to you, hey, move the fuck out of the way, ugly. You're like, you shit.
God duh. Oh fuck.
Seppuku would also be performed if a samurai were to be captured by their enemy in order to avoid giving up precious information, and that one is a little bit more reasonable. I would still say a little bit dramatic. I'm not a soldier of any kind, so I can't say that I would do that or not do that, but still a little dramatic.
Yeah.
But anyway, what do you think about the early stages of becoming a samurai, and how do you think you would have fared back then if you were put in this position?
How do you think I would have fucking fared, Chris? Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? I wouldn't have made it. I mean, like, maybe because if you grow up that way, it kind of makes sense to, like, you'll probably get used to it, like, get used to that level of discipline. Oh, hold on. I got... Oh, there we go. But... Woo! That was a good one. But... but just that level of discipline, like... And... Like, what if they have, like, kids... Like, what if they have kids that, like, aren't able to sustain that kind of discipline? Like, what would happen to them?
Yeah, I don't believe the kids had to, perform seppuku or anything like that. I think if you were, like, clarified an adult, so from, like, age 15, that's when the seppuku thing, which, by the way, seppuku is also known as harakiri, So if you've heard it in that term, it's the same thing. I believe harakiri is like a more derogatory term for the action.
So wait,
So
like a slang?
Yeah, it's more typically like more respectful to say it's seppuku.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. But yeah,
But yeah, I don't think children had to do that. I think if you just didn't make it as a samurai as like a 3 or 5-year-old, you just got kicked out. They didn't, you're like, hey, you're gonna have to kill yourself. I know you don't quite understand what's going on in the world, but
so wait, they would just be
go ahead and get out of it.
They would just be exiled to like a different village that isn't like a specific, because samurai, from what I know anyway, they're kind of like their own class to specifically serve the emperor. So they would just be exiled to basically live in another village.
Yeah, like I was saying, I don't think at that age anything drastic would happen. They probably just would move them on to becoming something less than a samurai, something probably like an artisan of some type, or some kind of farmer or something, whatever. Like basically just go back to being a commoner or a peasant.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that makes sense. But oh, god damn it, dude. I don't know. Obviously I romanticize being a samurai, but they were very loyal, and I'm not very loyal, and I wouldn't have grown up that same way. I definitely would have. I probably, if I grew up that way, I probably would have ended up like any other fucking kid. I'd either become a samurai or I wouldn't. But that also has to do with your upbringing and that kind of shit. So like if you're grown up that way, like you're going to be very used to that kind of situation to be in. So me now, fuck no. I have no discipline, dude. I have such a hard time just getting myself to fucking work out. Are you fucking kidding me? So it's not really it's not really a matter of whether I would be able to. It's because that's a no. Like what about you? I know you romanticize it just as well, but I know that for a fact you might not be able to do it.
Yeah, it's like I think spiritually and with the amount of discipline I have for myself, sometimes I could. I'm starting. It feels like as I'm getting older, my discipline is starting to backtrack, though.
How's
So
that?
I don't know. I just feel like I'm getting more relaxed about how I feel about my job, security, and money and everything. I'm getting more just like I just want to have fun. I just want to live my life, So I think if we're going back to if I was a little kid doing this, I feel like I would do really well, because I was in pretty great shape as a little kid. I still had pretty good discipline as far as I know. I don't remember being a little shithead.
Yeah, I was 100%. I fucking was.
Yeah, so I mean, I think as a kid I would have done well. I think now probably not so much, especially physically. I'm fucking like 85 in real life.
Yeah,
I'm like
no
85
shit.
trapped in a 29-year-old's body, or however old I am. I don't even remember how old I am. It's the dementia.
All right, so the loyalty to one's superiors was everything to a samurai. And samurai were bound to maintain loyalty to their shogun, which are military dictators, and to the daimyo. The daimyo were supposed to rule over their lands with a sense of wisdom and benevolence, but to no one's surprise, they usually did the opposite. Which, that's fucking anybody in power, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Compelled by greed, many of the daimyo were power hungry and corrupt and sought only to expand their rule over territory by any means necessary. And this usually meant sending out their loyal samurai to commit many atrocious acts, including killing innocent villagers. And this isn't to say that all daimyo were bad, it's just that, and the same that can be said of the samurai. Through honor, chivalry, and benevolence were some of the main practices of the samurai. Many were known to abuse the power they were given. As a samurai, you would be within your legal rights to strike down any peasant that insulted you in the slightest way due to a law known as kirisut gomen. Yeah, maybe? Does that sound right?
Something like that. Kirisute Gomen, I think.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, many samurai took advantage of this and would cut down completely innocent villagers for the sake of simply testing out a new sword or fighting maneuver. There's a sick game that came to be called Sujigiri. Yeah, Sujigiri. Or crossroads killing. Thankfully, this act came to be prohibited in 1602 due to this abuse of power. Which, by the way, that's fucking insane that the samurai existed as recently as 1602. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when the samurai weren't killing innocent people or being sent on a campaign fueled by greed, they were all god damn it, fucking drunk already. They were almost always training or studying. As previously mentioned, samurai began training from near infancy, and this continued on well into their old age. In unison with their training, there also came meditation and a diet. With the arrival of Zen Buddhism in the 12th century, the samurai adapted their daily rituals, and this included the way they foraged for food. The religion came with many restrictions on the cultivation of birds and animals for food, and thus the practitioners turned their diets towards fruits, vegetables, and grains, particularly rice. So we had a bunch of fucking vegan samurai. Are you kidding me right now?
I know, it's like when you think of samurai, you don't think of them just munching on like fruits and veggies and shit and fucking rice. You kind of think of them being like big, hulking, like meat eating, badass dudes, but instead they're actually vegans. So I think vegans are actually cooler than meat eaters.
It's not good. Anyway, coupling this with the fact that many samurai were not financially wealthy, the samurai were very frugal eaters. While the aristocracy and the military elite dined at banquets that served the finest food and drinks, the samurai, like the peasants, relied on husked rice as a staple. However, if a samurai were expected to go into battle, they might supplement their diet with abalone. Abalone? Is that abalone or abalone?
I think it's abalone.
No, okay.
It's a type of, it's like snails and stuff.
Oh, what? It's snails?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jesus Christ. So they supplement their diet with abalone, chestnuts, and kelp. As far as beverages go, samurai were at least allowed to partake in one of Japan's most widely consumed alcoholic beverages, the rice wine known as sake. When one of these warriors were to find themselves plunged into battle, they would don finely crafted, decorated, and protective armor. God damn it. Video was a mistake. Through heavy samurai armor was extremely though heavy samurai armor was extremely flexible, iron plated with leather or strips of bronze. Artisans handmade these armors using advanced tools and techniques. As technology continued to develop and new resources became available, samurai armor evolved with it. Over time, the armor became increasingly more elaborate, which had the obvious side effect of increasing its weight. One specific type of samurai armor, called the yoroi, or oyori, consisted of a multi-part skirt, a cuirass, shoulder pads, and a helmet. Overall, this set of armor weighed over 60 pounds. The samurai helmets, called kabuto, were forged from iron and steel, and their unique feature were the overlapping plates that provided protection of the neck, much like the rest of the armor. So that's the kind of like neck skirt that you see comes down.
If you think of a typical like samurai helmet, it's like, like fans out very wide, and that's what that big wide fanning out is to protect their neck. I never really thought about the practicality of it, but now that you talk about it, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is.
There's actually a practicality to it. It's not just, it's not just flair.
Yeah, exactly. But much like the rest of the armor, the helmets were carefully sculpted and highly decorated. A daimyo warlord, for example, would often adorn their helmet with some sort of animal or insect iconography. This would help them stand out not only to their troops, but also to their enemies, so that it might strike fear in the hearts of men who might have heard of their feats. The samurai's everyday wear was a kimono, usually consisting of an outer and inner layer, normally made of silk. The quality of the kimono depended on the samurai's income and status, and beneath the kimono, the warrior wore a loincloth, which, if you don't know what a loincloth is, it's literally just it's like a fucking G-string with a cloth that covers your cock. The samurai swords were normally thrust through an obi, a belt wrapped around the waist, and were always worn on the left side. So that pretty much means that if you were a samurai, you were right-handed as a swordsman. When indoors, the samurai would remove this long sword, but he was always armed with his wakizashi. Outside the home, the samurai wore a two-piece costume called the kamishimo over the kimono. The upper piece was a sleeveless jacket with exaggerated shoulders on the lower part of the body. Samurai wore wide, flowing trousers called hakama. When traveling, they would wear a long-sleeve coat over the kimono. Samurai warriors took great care styling their hair. which they pulled back into a top knot called a chomagi. Komagi. Um, for battle, samurai warriors shaved the top of their heads, which reduced the heat under their heavy helmets, and wore their hair straight on the sides. When not wearing helmets, they pulled the side and back hair into a top knot. What do you think about their specific, behavior as far as their discipline, their diet, and how they would dress? Like even their dressing is very, very particular.
Yeah, so I do like that, like, everything about them has a specific purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, their behavior obviously is very purposeful. In particular, when we were talking about, or you were talking about that Tsuchigiri, them being able to just kill random people, pretty fucked up. But it does prove that there obviously are some samurai that veered away from their moral code. But for the most part, it's cool that, they have this like moral compass that guides them on everything, even as far down as their diet, because that diet was all coming from the Zen Buddhism beliefs. And then the way that they dress was all just very functional. The armor was all designed a very specific way. Like we were talking about the functionality of the helmet to protect the neck and everything. And then the kimono, outside when they weren't in battle, left them free and everything, but they still carried their swords on them. They have two swords, one for inside, one for outside. That is cool as fuck. I really love how, like I said, just everything has a purpose. Everything is functional. I don't know. It's really awesome. I don't know. Like, what do you think about the samurai, the behavior and diet and all that?
I think the like specific discipline that they have is just so fucking impressive. Like I like granted I'm very like lazy in a lot of areas, but just that insane discipline that they retain for every single aspect of their lives. Like when they wake up, they have to sit up a certain way. Like it literally comes down to that. Like even when they're making their food, they have to like place the spoon on a specific side, and they have to do everything perfectly. And it's not just about it's not just about what it's viewed as on the outside. It's also viewed on how other samurai view you and how you view yourself. The more peaceful and relaxed and perfect you try to make everything, it seemed like the more respect that you would receive in general, just because it shows the care that you put into everything, and that also would extend to your fighting ability, it seems like. So, I mean, as far as that goes, it's just very, very impressive. I can't say any more about like I 100% couldn't fucking do this by myself. I don't know. It's insanely impressive. I can't imagine fucking living like that though.
Yeah, so speaking of that like moral code and everything, let's go ahead and take a deeper look at Bushido, which is the moral code that the samurai followed. The word Bushido comes from the Japanese words bushi, meaning warrior, and do, meaning the way. Combining the two, you quite literally have the translation, the way of the warrior. In the mid-19th century, however, the precepts of Bushido were made the basis of ethical training in the whole society, with the emperor replacing the feudal lord or daimyo as the focus of loyalty and sacrifice. As such, it contributed to the rise of Japanese nationalism following the Meiji, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but following the Meiji Restoration in 1868, and to the strengthening of the civilian morale during the Sino-Japanese War, 1937 to 45, and World War II. Instruction in the code was officially abandoned with Japan's defeat in 1945. Elements of the code remain, however, in the practice of Japanese martial arts, and specifically in the sport of sumo wrestling. The name Bushido was not used until the 16th century, but the idea of the code developed during the Kamakura period of 1192 and 1333, as did the practice of seppuku. At the time, the Minamoto family established Japan's first military government, Bakufu, headed by a hereditary leader called the shogun. The precise content of the Bushido code varied historically as the samurai class came under the influence of Zen Buddhist and Confucian thought, but its one unchanging ideal was martial spirit, including athletic and military skills as well as fearlessness towards the enemy in battle. Frugal living, kindness, honesty, and personal honor were all also highly regarded, as was filial piety. However, the supreme obligation of the samurai was to his lord, even if it might cause suffering to his parents. During the Edo, the Tokugawa period, 1603 to 1867, Bushido thought was infused with Confucian ethics and made into a comprehensive system that stressed obligation or duty. The samurai was equated with the Confucian perfect gentleman and was taught that his essential function was to his essential function. Man, that's tough. He was taught that his essential function was to exemplify virtue to the lower classes. Obedience to authority was stressed, but duty came first, even if it entailed violation of statute law. So this extended so far that they were allowed to break the law if they needed to uphold their lord's order. So the extent to which duty superseded all else is perhaps best exemplified in the story of the 47 Ronin from the early 18th century. The samurai who had become masterless after their lord had been treacherously murdered avenged their lord's death and afterward were all ordered to commit seppuku. So like we talked about earlier, a samurai's sole duty was to his master above all else. And it's important to remember that for a samurai because it has almost quite literally guided their every action. Like with the tale of 47 Ronin, even after their lord has been slain, they still upheld their duty to, avenge him in death. Avenging him, albeit through treacherous means, which ultimately led to them having to commit seppuku. And a Ronin, by the way, is a masterless samurai, and this was not something that you wanted to be. When a samurai's master is slain, the samurai is supposed to commit seppuku, according to the Bushido Shoshinshu. A samurai who refused to honor this code became a Ronin, and they were forced to wander the lands as dishonorable outcasts. Though this discrimination for dishonor mainly came from other samurai and daimyo, it still was not a good thing to be considered Ronin. Coincidentally, many Ronin would turn to a life of crime, acting as highwaymen or bandits to make ends meet. It also wasn't uncommon for some less honorable daimyo to hire Ronin to their outfit as mercenaries. Of course, this would also mean that the daimyo hiring the Ronin would, too, be going against the Bushido code. Of course, as we've already heard, that wasn't that uncommon either. But last thing we want to talk about with samurai is their sex life. Who were they slamming when they weren't swinging their swords at each other? Were, samurai celibate, or were they getting some sweet strange in their off time? Or maybe it was within Bushido code to, please oneself every now and again. I'm joking, of course, but honestly, a samurai's sex life and marriage were all dictated as well, and it shouldn't come as much surprise that a samurai's marriage was typically arranged.
Yeah, and if a samurai of lower social standing wished to marry, they would first need approval from someone who is the same or higher social rank than the person that they wanted to marry. For samurai of higher ranks, marriages had to be arranged. Marriages were often arranged within the samurai class, although the lowest ranking members were allowed to marry commoners. While women had vast freedoms and rights compared to the other cultures, their society grew more patriarchal over time. By the 13th century, the husbands had absolute control and authority over their household and wives. Divorce was also permitted, and having second and even third marriages was not unusual, so that's kind of good, though this too was usually dictated by the samurai. Of course, there were plenty of cases where the samurai would treat his wife as an equal as well, but it's important to note that this wasn't expected. Not all samurai were exactly straight either, and in fact, many Japanese samurai would take on younger male lovers, much like the Greek culture. Homosexuality was not looked down upon and was usually actively encouraged. Unfortunately, as you might have guessed, these relationships didn't tend to venture into pedophilic territory. In Japanese Shintoism and Buddhism, homosexual and heterosexual sex wasn't frowned upon. Buddhists had a concept called nanshoku, where a young boy entered into a homosexual relationship with older monks. It was a physical and psychological relationship where the older monk is supposed to look after the younger boy. Because most samurai studied Buddhism, the idea of nanshoku was easy for them to accept. And with little quantities of women in fortified cities, the samurai turned the idea of nanshoku into wakashudo, prepubescent boys who became apprenticed to an older man. The boys would then learn martial arts and life skills, turning this concept into a form of a brotherhood contract. So it kind of sounds like you would trade sexual favors almost for training?
Yeah, it was like almost for like advancement.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Shut my cat. I'm sorry.
He didn't like that either.
No,
She didn't like
my cat was just like, nope, I'm not fucking dealing with that. Oy. Sorry about that, guys. Both parties were accepted to help each other in times of need, and when the relationship ended, a lifelong bond of friendship would develop between the two former parties. When Commodore Matthew Perry sailed into Japan in 1853, he forced the country to establish trade relations with the United States. The arrival of Western nations ultimately led to the collapse of the shogunate. Shogunate? Yeah, whatever. Causing the Meiji Restoration. Under the Restoration, the Japanese began copying the West in an effort to modernize themselves. This led Japanese society to start condemning homosexuality, even though the practice was extremely widespread. The Japanese ruling elite began condemning same-sex love, as it was seen now as unnatural. Soon, homosexuality began disappearing from literature, theater, and art. The concept of nanshoku became associated with the German concept of the Urning, which is the concept of suffering from a particular psychological disorder. However, the anti-homosexuality laws were later reversed, and the act of having same-sex relationships continued. So So now it's okay, but it's really fucked up. Knowing about Japanese Japanese history makes me hate Western history even that much more. Just because like almost every other fucking place was pretty much okay with homosexuality, or just, I mean, granted, like pedophilia is never okay, but like during the times almost everybody was fucking fine with it. It makes me upset that westernizing Japan kind of led to a lot of disrespectful kind of traditions and
like
stuff.
outlawing the homosexual nature and everything. Yeah.
And not just that, just like I think like if you look at Tokyo or Japan now, it's just so fucking capitalized. You know what I mean?
Tokyo is really just Japanese New York.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if
really
you look
is.
at pictures side by side, they really look the same.
Yeah, it's a
And
gorgeous.
it's funny too. I saw like a meme that was saying something about like they're just trying to brainwash us with capitalism, blah blah blah. And it was like a picture of New York, and then it showed somebody in Tokyo, and they were like, "Oh, like this is so amazing." It's like, yeah, I know. We we don't even realize. Like I said, it's like back when we were doing our cinematography episode, it's like the best way to like manipulate somebody is to just make them believe the lie.
Yeah,
and that's like what Tokyo is. I mean, I wonder if Japanese people come to New York and think the same thing, like, "Oh, this is so cool." They don't even realize it's like the exact same thing.
Yeah, no shit. I think it's just the architecture is just slightly different. That's really it.
Yeah, I do love Tokyo. Like, I want to go there so bad. If I could go to any place, like any foreign country, Japan's my first pick.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing that like I like about Japan. If I were to go there as a vacation spot, it's just because it's they have like so many dedicated temples that like not so different from us, like having national parks and stuff like that. They have temples and stuff dedicated to like never being fucking touched, always being cleaned, always being upheld, and stuff like that. Those are the places I want to go. As much as I want to go to Tokyo too, because I don't really care. I like capitalism in that way. I want to go to Japan and buy a fucking a Gundam, and like I really want to go there. But yeah, before we move on to the Shinobi, we're going to wrap up talking about the samurai by naming off a couple of notable samurai and a brief description of why they are recognized. One of the most famous warlords from the Sengoku period, Shimazu Yoshihisa, hailed from the Satsuma province. He was married to his aunt for a brief time. He launched a campaign to unify Kyushu and has tasted many victories. His clan ruled a major part of Kyushu for many years and was eventually defeated by Toyotomi Hideyoshi. After the defeat, Yoshihisa is believed to have retired and become a Buddhist monk. He died a peaceful death. And another one is known for his affinity of violence and lack of mercy. Date Masamune was one of the most feared warriors of his era. God damn. Having lost the sight in his right eye in childhood due to smallpox. He had fucking another Western fucking reference. We just bring smallpox to places. Like, why the fuck are we even here? He had to make extra effort to be recognized as a fighter. After a series of defeats in early days, he slowly built his reputation and became one of the most efficient warriors of the time. When his father was kidnapped by enemies of his clan, Masamune retaliated with slaughtering all of them, killing his father during the mission. He later served Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Tokugawa Ieyasu as the head of the Date clan. Number 3 is known as the Dragon of Echigo. Kenshin was a fierce warrior and the leader of the Nagao clan. He was famous for his rivalry with Takita Shingen. The two fought each other for many years, engaging in one-on-one combat several times. Jesus Christ, I'm starting to talk like a Japanese man coming to fucking America. That was mean. I'm sorry. He was also one of the warlords who... I'm so sorry. He was also one of the warlords who resisted the campaigns of Oda Nobunaga. He was a reputed administrator as well. There are various stories surrounding the cause of his death. Number 4, initially an ally of Oda Nobunaga and successor Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Tokugawa Ieyasu was more agile with his brain than his sword. After the death of Hideyoshi, he gathered the enemies of the Toyotomi clan and fought against it to take over the rule. He defeated the Toyotomis in the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600 and became the first Tokugawa shogun in 1603. The Tokugawa shogunate ushered a new era of peace in Japan and ruled until 1868. That's impressive. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And number 5 is the leader of the Iga clan, Hattori Hanzo. Hattori Hanzo was one of the rare samurai who were also ninja warriors. He was a loyal servant to the Tokugawa Ieyasu, who saved his master a few times from certain death. His primary weapon was a spear. In his older years, Hanzo became a Buddhist monk, and he is one of the most famous warriors in Japanese pop culture and inspired many fictional works and warriors.
Yeah, I knew you were going to pick up on it as soon as I saw it and I was writing it down. I was like, oh, he's going to love that one. So yeah, we'll talk about that later, obviously. Number 6, often called as the Tiger of Kai, Takita Shingen was a fearsome warrior as well as a poet. He fought in numerous battles. In the fourth battle of Kawanakajima, he met his rival Usagi Kenshin in a one-on-one fight as well. He was one of the very few warriors who tasted any success against Oda Nobunaga and had the power to stop him. However, Shingen died in mysterious circumstances in 1573, after which Nobunaga consolidated power. So that's unfortunate. He had some success against that Nobunaga guy, but eventually died and Nobunaga took over. Kind of a bummer. Number 7, often known as the warrior who surpassed death, Honda Tadakatsu was one of the fiercest warriors Japan has produced. One of the 4 heavenly kings of Tokugawa, he took part in more than 100 battles to never be defeated in any of them. Pretty impressive. His major weapon was a spear known as the Dragonfly Cutter, which inspired fear in every opponent. Tadakatsu fought in the decisive battle of Sekigahara, which led to a new era in Japanese history. I gotta say, that's a badass weapon name too, the Dragonfly Cutter. That's fucking sick.
It needs to be in Sekiro.
Yeah, I know. Number 8, perhaps the most celebrated samurai warrior over the years, Miyamoto Musashi was one of the greatest swordsmen Japan has ever had. His first duel was at the age of 13. He fought in the battle between the Toyotomi clan against the Tokugawa clan on the side of the former, ending up defeated. He later traveled along Japan, winning numerous duels against powerful opponents. Musashi's most famous duel was in 1612, in which he fought against master swordsman Sasaki Kojiro and killed him. In later years, he spent more time writing and authored the book The Five Rings, which details various sword fighting techniques. So I kind of want to look that up to just make sure that that's real, because I didn't fact check that one, but I wrote it down. Number 9, the successor of Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi was a powerful ruler and warrior. Born in a peasant family, he slowly ascended to power with his skills off and on the battlefield. He ruled over a major part of Japan from 1585 until his death in 1598, although he never attained the title of shogun. Hideyoshi constructed the massive Osaka castle and waged battles to conquer Korea and China, albeit unsuccessfully. Soon after his death, I didn't write down the rest. I suck. So unfortunately, I don't know what he did after his death. I failed to write it down. But either way, obviously, he didn't complete whatever he sought out to do against Korea and China, so suck it. Number 10, one of the most recognizable warriors in Japanese history, Oda Nobunaga was a charismatic leader as well. In 1560, he killed Yoshimoto Imagawa, who attempted to take over Kyoto and set the foundation of the unification of Japan. He made use of firearms in battles, a novel idea of the time. His death was from an act of betrayal by one of his own generals, Akechi Mutsahide, who set fire to the temple that he was resting at. However, Nobunaga committed suicide, a more honorable way to die. Which was good, because I was about to say, being set on fire, it has to be like the worst way to die, but luckily, I guess he was able to kill himself before he burned alive. I guess that's better.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up on samurais, and we're going to move on to talking about their shadowy counterparts, the shinobi. But first, I'm pretty sure it is that time. You know what time I'm talking about. It's time for Tipplers Tidbit. Today's Tipplers Tidbit is brought to you by Ronin Japanese Cuisine. Finally, a place for all you misfit samurais to get your eat on. They have all the favorite foods like a snail, a piece of seaweed, a blade of grass, water from a creek, and Japanese air. For a limited time only, if you can finish your plate in under 47 minutes, you eat free. That's right, absolutely free. If you don't finish your plate, you have dishonored yourself and must commit seppuku. But hey, we don't expect you to hold to that. So come and get your grub on at the Ronin Japanese Cuisine. Obviously, that is not a real restaurant or a real advertisement, but if you would like to hear your own place of business here on this podcast, then feel free to reach out to us at Tipplers Two Cents Podcast at gmail.com. Now then, today's Tipplers Tidbit is this. Sake can be consumed straight, hot, cold, or at room temperature based on drinker's preference, type of sake, and weather. Premium sake is best served chilled at room temperature, whereas lower grade sake like futsushu is best served warm. Sake is poured into a smaller ceramic flask called a tsukiri and served in drinking cups called choko or ochoko. The ideal temperature for hot sake is 50 degrees Celsius and is prepared by pouring the sake into a takuri and then placing the takuri in a hot bathwater. The ideal temperature for chilled sake is 10 degrees Celsius. So now, if anyone asks you about sake, you can claim to know at least a little bit about the Japanese beverage. And, you know, that would have been helpful if I was able to obtain some sake for this episode, damn it. Anyway, this has been your Tipplers Tidbit. Tipplers Tidbit. Alright, guys and gals, looks like it's time to move on to talking about the shinobi, or as they are better known as ninjas. Sean, are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Let's talk about the shinobi.
Much like the samurai, a shinobi or ninja was typically fairly poor and from a lower class. But what separates the shinobi from the samurai was the way that they operated. Whereas the samurai would attack you in broad daylight, the shinobi would kill you before you even fucking knew they were there. Their covert methods of war were incredibly advanced, almost otherworldly. For the most part, espionage was the ninja's coup de grace, with a variety of disguises. Ninjas would infiltrate enemy territory, learn about the building layouts, steal secrets and passwords, and spread misinformation. And they typically relied on sabotage, specifically arson, burning down many enemy settlements in the cover of night. They were perceived as controversial as well. Many found the role of a shinobi to be shameful, unable to face their enemy, and therefore beneath the honor of the samurai. In comparison, ninjas were simply guerrilla warriors who took a path of subtlety rather than brute force. Think of it like a Navy SEAL versus a Marine. Is one really better than the other? No, they both achieved the same goal through just different means. The shinobi almost came from smaller and poorer clans who were unable to field large, well-equipped armies. So these warriors were simply playing into their strengths instead of facing a disadvantage. These tactics are what we now call asymmetrical warfare, relying on ambush and infiltration. No one quite knows for sure when ninjas first started to appear, which, if they did, that would be kind of fucking stupid. Like, they couldn't even keep their secrets that well. Though there are signs that they may have existed as early as the 12th century. Despite popular folktales, historical accounts of the shinobi are rather scarce. Because of their lower class social standing, not much documentation was taken about them. The word ninja has sometimes been attributed to the 4th century prince Yamato Takeru. According to the Chronicle of Early Japanese Myths and legends from the Kojiki, Takeru disguised himself as a beautiful maiden and yes, and assassinated 2 chiefs of the Kumaso people. This information is not entirely reliable, though, as the records were taken during a very early stage of Japanese history. The first recorded use of the shinobi-type espionage was under the order of Prince Shotoku in the 6th century. By all rights, ninjas didn't really start to come into their own until the 15th century, also known as the Sengoku period or the Age of Warring States. During this time, there were 2 major ninja clans, the Iga and the Koga clans. These 2 groups make up the families that lived in the province of Iga and the nearby region of Koga, named after a village in what is now Shiga Prefecture. These 2 regions were a perfect breeding ground for ninjas. Excuse me, as the high surrounding mountains and dense forests provided excellent cover from outside surveillance, instilling a sense of subtlety from conception. The first specialized training in what has come to be known as the ninjutsu also began in the 15th century Sengoku period. As with the samurai, training would begin at childhood and began when samurai families started to focus on covert warfare like espionage and assassination. Like the samurai, traditions and training were passed down through the family. Some historians also believe that the ninjas didn't receive martial arts training in the formal sense. However, the system of Shugendo, is believed to have been part of their initiation. But not all shinobi took part in the spiritual journey, but the ones that did were pushed to their absolute limits. Training including hiking through miles of dense forest and sitting under waterfalls to build up their strength and endurance, which is fucking dope. They also focused on improving their agility, balance, and perception of their environment. Most importantly, they focused on perfecting the art of deception, as this was the main tool of the shinobi. One such training tip for the shinobi was to move closer to the walls before once inside an infiltrated building. This would produce the least likely chance that a floorboard would creak under the footsteps. They would also practice breathing methods to reduce the sound of their breaths, mainly focusing on taking long, steady breaths through the mouth. There was also a controversial tactic to further mask the sound of footsteps, one that was performed by stepping on one's own hands while walking. What do you think about the shinobi's training tactics versus the samurai's training tactics?
Yeah, it's it's pretty similar and different at the same time, and shinobi and samurai, I guess, are similar and different at the same time. I don't know, it's crazy. I love you seem particularly interested in the waterfall thing too, and I think that's cool as fuck. I honestly think that would be a really good training method, because if you think about being under a waterfall, that's tons of pressure pouring down on you. So you have to build up the resistance to it while also trying to fucking, struggle to breathe and not get pushed off and everything. That's a hell of a training method right there. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And then doing crazy things like the walking on their hands. I actually watched a brief video of a guy trying to do it. And it's crazy. I almost want to try it for the people that watch on YouTube, but I'm not confident in my ability to do it. But I think I'll just get into the pose real quick. So if you're on YouTube, you get to watch this. If you're not, sorry.
You're going to be really confused about what's happening. Okay, let's see.
So they did it like this.
Oh, that's fucking great.
Yeah, so they would walk on their hands like that, basically, just kind of doing some weird sort of crab walk. It was pretty interesting, but I could also see how it would work and at the same time how it wouldn't. Because I feel like if you weren't practiced at doing that, you just fall on your face and fucking make a bunch of noise. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's cool. I like that they say that they weren't exactly sure that they got martial arts training and that instead they did Shugendo. Because if I'm remembering correctly, Shugendo is like more of like spiritual training where it's like you just more about like taking in everything around you and stuff like that. So it's kind of like more pertaining to like awareness of, the world around you and stuff. And I think that could be useful too, not just knowing, how to fight and everything, but knowing what's around you, what you can use, and it being adaptive and stuff. So I don't know. What do you think about them?
I don't know. I think I prefer the Shinobi method almost, just because like I've always been like, as a kid, you're almost more impressed with ninjas. Like, name one fucking kid that's actually quiet. You know what I mean? Like, I think that ninjas are always like really embedded in, especially younger boys' heads or younger kids' heads in general. But yeah, I just think it's so much more impressive to do that way. But I can see why it would be viewed back then as being like dishonorable and stuff, because you would. As far as the samurai is concerned, you gain more honor like facing your opponents dead on rather than basically backstabbing them. Which in any instance, like even backstabbing is a term now, which is more of like an assassination kind of term. That's more based off of the fact that like you had to deceive people and all that stuff. So the focus on it's pretty similar even nowadays, but for me, I think Shinobi's way fucking cooler than Samurai. I'm sorry. I don't really care.
Yeah. So, like how you were talking about, like how kids and stuff kind of look at Shinobi and ninjas and stuff like that, is basically due to like the way Hollywood has made you perceive them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about that a little bit, because one area where fact differs from the fiction that Hollywood has created surrounding ninjas is their clothing. Typically, when we think of a shinobi or a ninja, we envision a warrior wrapped in like an all-black garment, complete with the mask cover or a mouth cover. The reality is that most ninjas never actually wore a mask, and they never really wore all black either. Instead, if they were to wear, some sort of full-colored garb, it would actually more closely be like a dark navy blue, because that would match better to the nighttime surroundings than black would.
Yeah, that makes sense.
More typically, though, a ninja would hardly ever wear any sort of outfit that would make them stand out. Instead, they would dress about as normal as they possibly could. An important tactic for a ninja was not to stand out. So they would dress as like street performers, priests, merchants, and farmers. Sometimes they would even go as far as to dress as a homeless person in order to better move unnoticed or from arousing suspicion. Another common misconception about the shinobi was their use of throwing stars. These stars, for one, are actually called shuriken and weren't actually a common part of a ninja's arsenal. This isn't to say that a ninja never used a shuriken, but that's, simply the association is a bit off. In reality, samurai and ashigaru soldiers were more prone to use shuriken than a shinobi would. The function of a ninja is to strike your enemy without being revealed, and as you might imagine, throwing a big piece of metal at an enemy from a distance is a much better way of getting detected than simply sneaking past or taking them down within melee range. When a shinobi did resort to using a shuriken, it was typically more for distraction than lethality. Many of the tools a ninja would use would actually come to serve as more for function than as weaponry. More commonly, a ninja would use such tools as grappling hooks, rope, caltrops, and foldable bamboo ladders. The most lethal tool in a ninja's arsenal was not an actual physical tool, but instead the psychological manipulation they were capable of. As mentioned earlier, part of a ninja's training was to master the art of deception, and this is included in deceiving the mind of the target as well. Easy targets for this included formerly high-ranking individuals who had since fallen out of favor. They were much more susceptible to manipulation, and as you could easily incite the anger from their fall from grace and extract valuable information that they still possessed. Another method of extracting information required a shinobi to be flexible in his understanding of the different social ranks and their behavior. He needed to understand how to blend into all different manners of crowds, from high-ranking aristocrats to low-level peasants and commoners. Playing dumb was even a tactic ninjas used to extract information. Appearing ignorant increased the chances that someone might tell you something in confidence after they had decided that you pose no threat due to your lack of intelligence. And I'll be quite honest, I've used this tactic quite often in my life, and I'm not proud to admit that, but I can tell you it is quite effective once you learn how to do it right. After years and years of ninjas successfully infiltrating, assassinating, and sabotaging their enemies, countermeasures against ninja attacks soon took form. People started to hide weapons in unsuspecting places such as the bathroom or food storage area. Buildings began to be constructed with secret traps and hidden tripwires or pressure plates that would trigger alarms to notify anyone in the building. Architects even began to design castles to be especially confusing to navigate in order to slow the progress of potential intruders. They would also build in secret hidden peek holes and blind spots to provide accessible surveillance of the outside walls. For an example, one such castle in Kyoto, known as the Niho Castle, constructed special floorboards known as nightingale floors, that were specifically designed to squeak when stepped on. I guess the way it worked was they would take a piece of like wood and they'd have these like cross springs made from like metal hinges, and every time you stepped on it, they would flex out and squeak.
That's cool as shit.
I know, I'm like, it's pretty ingenious in how simple it worked too. Of course, these methods to deter a shinobi were not always successful, as the specialized training they had received prepared them for these kind of obstacles. That said, with the introduction of ninja-proofing methods, the success rate of ninjas did take a major hit, and this began the downfall of the ninja. That's not to say that they ever faded away completely, but that only their appearance began to become fewer and farther in between. In today's pop culture, shinobi and ninjas have become a huge staple for Japanese culture in terms of subtlety and agility. While they may have faded out due to technological advances, the spirit of ninjas still definitely lives on in more modernized recreations. But unfortunately, as interesting as the shinobi may be, there are slim pickings on what there is to learn about these masters of stealth. As much as I could try to dig up more about these sneaky bastards, the more I found the same information. It might seem that they just weren't good enough at hiding. They weren't just good at hiding themselves, but also being able to hide the knowledge about how they operated to everyone as well. So that's basically going to wrap up what we know about ninjas. And I mean, like, I scoured as many articles as I can. They all just said the same stuff over and over again. So anyway, with what little we do know about ninjas, what do you make of the shinobi overall? You already kind of said you found them to be more interesting than the samurai, but, why don't you give everybody a little rundown over again? Do you feel like you appeal more to the shinobi or for samurai?
I personally think that the shinobi I guess they're more like the samurai. Seems like they're both obviously more. Samurai and shinobi are both just as necessary as the other, but without the necessity, like I've said this so many times before, like you need quiet and you need loud, and obviously the shinobi weren't trained in actual martial arts and specific tactics and stuff, so they couldn't do like pincer moves and all that shit. But what they could do was sneak in and assassinate high level people. Whereas the samurai, they're all about sieges and taking down armies, lowering numbers and stuff like that. The samurai, I just see them as not that they're not awesome. I really fucking love the samurai and their whole idea, just what they look like. I'm so drunk right now, I can't fucking focus. But but the shinobi just seems to be more, I don't know, more unique to me. That's the only reason why it appeals to me more. That's
Yeah, and the fact that, like I was talking about, is like I couldn't find a whole lot about them other than everything that kind of seems like everybody knows.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Like, that's exactly what a ninja should be, you know? We should not be able to know that much about them, and it's kind of good that we don't. I mean, like, literally, there's historians saying that, you know, they can't pinpoint where they came from. They don't know for sure that they don't know martial arts. They don't know for sure about, like, how high they could jump. There was theories about, you know, ninjas being able to jump as high as, like, 7 or 8 feet into the air, like, vertical jump. And, I mean, like, yeah, it's like all of it is almost all speculation. And I think that is so much cooler about them. Just the fact that, like, the not knowing kind of thing. That said, you know, as we were talking about the samurai and stuff, I love their moral compass, that moral code that they follow. Like, being a real, true, like, good, honorable samurai sounds super cool. But also, I think if I had to choose between the two, I think I'd rather be a ninja.
Yeah.
Sounds like I wouldn't say easier, but just like a safer job sometimes. You know, you just kind of you sneak around, stab people in the back.
Yeah, because it's not just assassination. It's like their not secret service, but like their intelligence. Like that's pretty much what they are. Is like a ancient intelligence agency. That's 100% what they fucking are. Anyway, guys, if you have any idea how these episodes usually go, you can tell that we've wrapped up on the Shinobi today. So, it is time for Tipplers Take Two.
Come on. So what's holding everything up here?
Art department.
So the grips are holding us back?
All right, try that take one more time.
1 second.
Hey, quiet on the set!
Tipplers Take Two. Mark.
Action!
Oh, ninjas. The movies that these ideas of the samurai and the shinobi have inspired, and not just movies, games, shows. Fuck, I love them so much. One of them is The Last Samurai, and I think that's the one with Tom Cruise. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is fucking amazing in this. And I'm going to go to screen cap here in a second to show you guys what the fuck I'm talking about. Because The Last Samurai is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, as well as Chris, because Chris fucking loves The Last Samurai.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The Last Samurai is amazing, dude. And I even watched a YouTube video where a samurai, a modern day samurai, like was reviewing samurai movies. And seeing about like how they, how well they showed like how the sword fighting was in the movies and stuff like that. And he actually said that this movie was like a 9 out of 10 for displaying how a samurai should fight.
Oh, really?
And he was particularly talking about that scene where Tom Cruise fights the like 5 dudes in the street, like towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. That's amazing to me. Okay, so the premise of the movie is right here on screen for you guys. Chris can't see it, so he's probably confused, but it says Captain Nathan Algren, which is Tom Cruise, is an American military officer hired by the Emperor of Japan to train the country's first army in the art of modern warfare. So it's during the time that they are getting modernized or westernized, as Japan puts it, as the government attempts to eradicate the ancient samurai warrior class in preparation for more westernized and trade-friendly policies. Algren finds himself unexpectedly affected by his encounters with the samurai, which places him at the center of a struggle between 2 eras and 2 worlds. So basically, he starts understanding and loving the way of the samurai, and it's fucking such a good movie. I highly recommend it. And by the way, Chris, you can't notice this right now, but our cameras get switched during the screen cap thing, so I'll fix that the next episode. I apologize, but it's still very much watchable. But yeah, Last Samurai, fucking 10 out of 10.
Yep, 10 out of 10 on that one.
The next movie, I don't know why I love this movie. I don't. I don't know why I love this movie so much. It is Beverly Hills Ninja. It's so fucking stupid.
I put it on there, but I haven't seen it since I was like a little kid, man. But it's with Chris Farley, the late and great Chris Farley. And I do remember loving it as a kid, thanks to my mom. I'm pretty sure she's the one who got both of us watching that. Yeah, I can't even remember what it was about or anything, but I just remember Chris Farley's fucking hilarious. And doesn't it have the guy who played Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat from the 1960s?
Yeah, it does.
1960s, 1990s, sorry.
Yeah, this is the poster for it. Beverly Hills Ninja, Chris Farley. I'll look up the cast real quick. Yeah, this movie is essentially they have a name for him. His name is the Great White Ninja. So he's supposed to be like a sort of chosen one, a prophecy in there, and it's so fucking silly. It's Chris Farley, but I don't know. I can't remember his the cast for it. So Nicolette, blah blah blah. Chris Rock's in it. Oh man, where the fuck is it? I don't know his name. But yeah, it does have the same character as that played Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat movie in the 90s. It's such a good movie, and it's so silly, and I 100% approve of it. Another one is 47 Ronin. I think that has Keanu Reeves, doesn't it?
Yeah, so there's multiple versions of this. There's like a 1960s version, and then there's the one with Keanu Reeves. I'm specifically talking about the one with Keanu Reeves because I love Keanu Reeves, but I don't love this movie. That's all I will say. They went a very like mystical route with it, and I did not like it. I would have much preferred the real story of the 47 Ronin. We didn't get a chance to elaborate on it, but just basically what happened was their master got like tricked about getting like to kill himself, I think. And these 47 samurai, instead of committing seppuku like they were supposed to do, decided to get revenge for their fallen master before they committed seppuku. And this became like a big deal because after they did successfully get revenge for their master, they killed the guy that got him to kill himself. But then they all, at the very same time, 47 people committed seppuku, ritual suicide, side by side to each other. The movie does do a good, like, Hollywood version of that at the end of the movie, I will say, because they still follow through on that. And it's a good, like, kind of powerful scene, probably like the only good scene from the movie that I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have much preferred, like, a realer version of that, because I just think that the story is really powerful and cool. And I do like revenge tales, so.
Yeah. Another one is what is it? It is Ninja Assassin. I remember this being really fucking cheesy. Not even gonna lie.
Yeah, I wanted to put not, so great movies on there also. But if you like kind of like action schlock films, then this is good for you. It's got plenty of like action and gore. But if you really like the dumb shit stuff, then it's probably going to be for you.
It has a 6.3 on IMDb, 26% on Rotten Tomatoes, 34% on Metacritic, and Google users rated it as 94% liked it. Trained in the methods of killing at an early age, Raizo, or otherwise known as Rain, is a member of the secret clan of assassins known as the Ozunu. After the Ozunu killed his friend, however, Raizo breaks free from them and vanishes. Meanwhile, Europol agent Mika Coretti, played by Naomi Harris, discovered a money trail linking the group to murders. Raizo saves Mika from his former comrades and joins forces with her to bring down the Ozunu forever. And yeah, it's very much a very cheesy movie with like silly action-packed sequences, but if you're into that kind of thing, it's just as good. Another movie. Oh my god, I gotta pee so fucking bad, Chris. Another one is Batman Begins. If you don't know this movie, fuck you. I don't give a shit. It's so damn good. It's obviously one of my favorite movies, and I know one of Chris's favorite movies. But the whole reason that this is brought up today is because he does get trained in, not ninjutsu necessarily, Batman, but he gets trained by Ra's al Ghul, who is and in the comics he's ancient. He's supposed to be immortal, and
but they're a group called the League of Shadows, and they're basically just like a group of ninjas, but really good, skillful, powerful ninjas. And I think that this movie does a really good job of like showing him getting trained like that. And really, for it being a Batman movie, a good chunk of it is like the like kind of a ninja part of it, and it's really cool. I don't know. I thought it was worth putting on here just for that.
Oh yeah,
and it shows a lot of like Batman's ninja side to him.
Yeah. Another one, obviously, is Mortal Kombat. it's good. I gotta pee. It's so good. Okay, Mortal Kombat, obviously inspired from the game from the 90s. I'm not going to look at the cast because I can't think right now, but the original one from the 90s, the first one's good, the second one's trash, and the whole premise of it is there's separate dimensions, like worlds, basically. Like, there's Outworld and stuff. Outworld wants to take over Earth, and Mortal Kombat is the tradition in which they basically let the fight decide who gets to rule over specific realms. So Shao Kahn wants to take over Earth realm, and
they have to fight for it.
Yeah, they have to fight for it, basically. If you don't know Mortal Kombat, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
you've been living under a fucking rock, dude.
But they are making a new movie for it, which I think is primarily supposed to be based around Sub-Zero and Scorpion's feud, which I'm gonna watch.
Well, the main protagonist is also supposed to be like a new character too, which I'm kind of disappointed about, but whatever. We'll see where it goes.
Another one is Sekiro. Chris, you can go ahead, because I'm not even going to try.
We've talked about it before. Love this game, like, through and through, and if you want a Shinobi experience, you're not going to get any better game. I don't care what anybody else tells you. They'll probably suggest some other, like Ninja Gaiden or something like that, but Sekiro gives you such a sense of like that holding true to your master, and then doing the sneaky stuff, and you get a bunch of like mythology stuff in it, and it's so beautiful. Mwah, fucking love that game.
Yeah, it's good. Another one is Kill Bill. And Kill Bill, like, I wanted to add this in just because it's Quentin Tarantino. It's obviously not strictly Japanese heritage and stuff, but the main character, which is, I forgot her first name, but it's Kiddo. Beatrix Kiddo. She's trained in the art of the samurai, or not samurai, in the art of, like, martial arts and stuff by, like, a fucking ancient Japanese master. She gets trained by Hattori Hanzo, which is why I was giving you that look earlier. Yeah, she, but that's, the Hattori Hanzo is reference to that character of our actual past, so. But yeah, Kill Bill is great, and now I gotta pee, so that is gonna be Tipplers Take 2. Okay, I'm not even kidding. Give me 1 fucking second. Holy shit.
Alright, that's fine, go ahead.
And cut.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap.
Samurai, Secret Shinobi. We hope you enjoyed talking about these super cool, badass medieval Japanese warriors. I certainly did. If you did enjoy this episode, please consider subscribing to the show and leave a review if possible. We would also like to ask that, you help spread the word by recommending the show to your friends and family. You can let them know that this show airs every other Monday. And it's pretty much on every platform. So there's, really, you have any preference to listen, go ahead and listen there.
And by the way, guys, you can also get shirts and stuff from represent.com/store/Tipplers 2 Cents. You can also get a hold of us if you have any questions at tipplers2centspodcast@gmail.com, or you can message us on Facebook at facebook.com/Tipplers 2 Cents. I really hope you check that out, because we have great shirts, and this episode definitely inspired a shirt, so keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and please remember to stay tuned for our new show, Cinematography. That's where Sean and I get to talk about all things cinema. We just recorded our second episode, so that's going to be coming out, and that one also airs every other Monday in between the Tipplers 2 Cents episodes. So, yeah, please keep a lookout for that. We're going to keep recording those. I like where that show is headed, and if you like this show, I feel like you're definitely going to like that show. Anyways, we will see you next time. I'm not quite sure what the next episode is. I think it's going to be Cannibalism and the Wendigo. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, we'll catch you guys next time on Tipplers 2 Cents. Sayonara.
Remember to drink responsibly and think responsibly. Bye.
Utanohuki. Utanamahuki. Utawa.
I'm just hoping Sean sees this while he's in the bathroom playing with his winky.